And just like that, we have already reached the end of season 15 of Drag Race. Okay, it's been a couple of months already, I know. I needed some time to settle and rewatch it a couple of times to get some concrete thoughts on this season overall. Also, just haven't had the time as well. It is always still bound to change over time as it's still really recent, but I'm very excited to talk about my thoughts on the season. Season 15 feels like a return to form for Drag Race. No overarching twists and eliminations in each episode, as well as back to the 40-minute episodes. I think it being the 15th season, including the 200th episode of Drag Race, the racer theme promo calling back to the first season, and it being the first season to air on MTV, it just felt like a celebration on how far Drag Race has come. It was also the season with the most queens, 16 at that, so it overall just showed how big Drag Race has become. Whether all of these works, we'll get to. I'm breaking up this video into sections to cover the most important parts of the season. I'm going to list them all here just so you know, and let's just get right into it. Being the most stacked cast ever, you know there were bound to be some well-known queens on this cast. I already knew of Luxx and Irene before Drag Race. Luxx I had been following for a while, so I was really excited when I saw she was on, and Irene I started following after season 14 as she is Bosco's sister and I really enjoyed her drag. Selena was a name that other queens have mentioned before on who they would like to see on Drag Race, as well as her being on the name of lists of who fans would like to see. Other queens' names have been thrown around before, but most of them were quite unknown, which is great as I love seeing unknown talent being given spotlight. But I obviously cannot go on any longer without mentioning the heavy hitters of the cast, Sugar and Spice and Sasha Colby. For me, the twins themselves are kind of the twist of the season that was advertised, as the idea of drag queens who were also twins kind of shake things up. Would they be competing together? What happens if one left? How would this play out? Or would they be teaming up together to take the rest of the competition out? Who knows? That's why you want to watch the season. Not only that, but Sugar and Spice were some of the most popular non-Drag Race queens ever, having 7 million followers on TikTok before even being on Drag Race. If people don't watch Drag Race, they will probably still know who Sugar and Spice are, which is massive. This also fed into the social media versus non-social media queens narrative that was a major part of the season, with Luxx, Amethyst and Princess Poppy also being part of that. Sugar and Spice's presence on season 15 would definitely stir things up, and it was a great choice as despite everyone finding them annoying at first, I think most people fell in love with their naive and goofy charm. And then there is Sasha Colby, one of the most well-known and respected drag performers ever. A Miss Continental winner, Sasha Colby has created a legacy that goes above and beyond her own Miss Continental win and Drag Race itself. Her performances are some of the best ever seen, and honestly she could have been a guest judge on Drag Race and it would make so much sense. No one would have batted an eye. For years she has been mentioned by Drag Race queens as someone to look out for, and she was even mentioned on All Star 6 in season 14. You could argue that her storyline started there when she was being mentioned as a legend. Her presence on the season was massive, and from her entrance the other queens knew she was big competition. The term Sasha Colby meet and greet is thrown around a lot, and I really did feel like it at some points. Sasha's impact is important, especially in this day and age, and it's amazing to have her on the season. Overall, I think the cast is really strong. Being the largest cast of any seasons, it was going to be hard to balance everyone, and whilst some were disadvantaged by the lack of edit or screen time, I still feel like I got to know everyone quite well and enjoy what they had to offer.
What?
Cause you're a star, baby!
The challenges were very hit or miss for me this season, with some decisions of the placing or what the challenges are based on just not hitting me as well as I wanted to. But however, there were many great standouts as well. I think having a talent show as the first challenge is great and should be the staple as well. I know there's always an abundance of original songs and lip syncs, but really that's what a lot of drag shows are. Also, it's a great way of queens to brand themselves and has some control on how they introduce themselves, no matter how long they last there. But this talent show, in my opinion, was actually one of the best ones. Other than Irene's and sometimes Amethyst's, I never skip anyone's talents because they just do bring it. We have had some of the best with Marsha's and Jax's and Luxx and Sasha's, and of course Anetra's, which I had on repeat for weeks. Guys, it's so good.
Yes. It is.
And Lucy, of course, while she was in the bottom. Completely undeserved because Let Loose is Song of the Year. Lucy, you deserve better, girl.
Let loose, I said let loose, you're all
Other highlights included the girl groups Daytona Wins 2, the Ball musical and the makeover as well. Most of the queens did actually really well in the challenges and I never really felt bored or uninterested with them. I think the first couple of challenges after the talent show were just a bit meh. The Heaven one had only one good group. The Snatch game would have been great if it wasn't 14 queens squished down to like 10 minutes for both groups. And whilst I liked the concepts of the design challenge, the overall results and judging didn't really help interest me. I mean, they're still watchable and I sometimes get some enjoyment out of them, but I didn't feel engaged most of the time. The Lollapalooza, whilst fun, didn't really have any stakes and some of the songs were choices. The 50-50 interview challenge and the stand-up challenges were fine, but I just felt like something was just missing from them. The Rupaul was the best challenge for me this season, and I think a lot of people feel that as well, as it's not only reflective of the time, but the production scale, the choreo, the camera work and the music, all amazing. For me, the musical is now becoming the one challenge to watch each season more than the Snatch game. I always love the remix challenge as well, and this one was no different. Blame It on the Edit is actually kind of a bop, and whilst I do listen to a fan-made version of ASMR Lover remix as well with the verses on top, I still think the Blame It on the Edit one is really good and the music video was great. Sasha looked really hot, they all did really good, and it was just a great way to end a really strong season. Overall for the season, the challenges were pretty good with some standouts. No awful challenges, but quite a few middle of the road ones for sure. Now, this is where the season stood out. The runways were top tier this season, with both the prompts and execution. There's very little that could be deemed awful. This is really highlighted with both design challenges, as everyone did at least fine to me. Like, there were no awful or unwearable garments to me. The worst ones were either too simple and boring or just ill-fitting. Like, Selena was in the bottom for both design challenges, but both her outfits were fine for me. Her plaid-inspired one had a great colour palette and really suited her, and I think like how she made the skirt was great as well. Just a few small styling issues only really put her in the bottom. Same with her dress in the crystal ball as well. I love the styling and concept of it, and like the kind of quilted design mixed with like the silk and the gold and everything, and I love the colour of it on her, but again, just the fit issues were the problem. Similar with Amethyst, who had some fit issues and styling issues, and Spices, whose outfit was just a bit too simple and a bit rough around the edges. Like, she got a skirt and just glued it around herself, that's really it. But really all the outfits were at worst simple and at best some of the best garments we've seen created. Lux's outfit she won in is one of the best constructed we've seen in a while, and Anetra, Mistress and Lux and Sasha's final outfits for the ball were all win-worthy for me. In terms of runways bought from home, it gets even better. Sasha, Lux, Mistress, Sugar, Spice, Robin, Aura, Malaysia, and many unseen looks from Irene were top tier drag. I was always blown away by at least one runway look for each week because, like I said, the girls bought it. The best categories for me were Who Is She, Tie-Dye, Puffer Please, Rip Her to Shreds, and Drag Excellence. But all the runways had their standout moments. I think the lip syncs were pretty good this season.
Free Willy!
Yeah, they were great. I think as time passed, I fell in love with these lip syncs even more. They had such a great array of songs for the most part, which allowed the queen to put so much character and fun into them, instead of the usual splits and tricks that we always see. Whilst it was fun to see Sugar and Spice lip syncing and performing for the first time, and do as best as they could, we also had some hard hitters this season. Sasha Colby, do I even need to say how good she is? No, I don't. Before she was ever spectator on the show, she was always praised and well renowned for her performance and dances, and she proved that by having the top performance of the season. I'm in Love with a Monster, Goddess and Knock of Wood she owned, and my eyes were on her the entire time. But what is also great about Drag Race, that it introduces new queens with absolutely amazing performance skills, and this season we got Anetra, Jax and Marsha and many more. Anetra I don't even need to introduce. You know how spectacular her lip syncs are. Mean boss bitch, do we need to say anymore? And how well she held her own against Sasha. Jax is a backflipping legend, and her In My Room lip sync and Sweetest Pie lip sync needs to be studied for its iconography. Marsha was a surprise this season, as I knew she would be able to hold her own in a lip sync, but wow, Marsha is such a good performer as well. While Selena and Lux were well known for Drag Race, they had some of my favourite lip syncs performances this season, with Queen and Is All Coming Back to Me Now for Selena, and The Right Stuff and For the Girls for Lux. The lip syncs were really fun this season, and I always go back to watch them, and also have some great new songs on my playlist now. now this is where my main points come through. As the editor of the season and the narratives and the story of the season was where my issues and favourite parts of the season were. With season 15, I was excited to see each week, and everything I've talked about so far, the challenges, runway and lip syncs, were always pretty good. Some were either meh that week, some were absolutely great, but the main thing is that they were also heavily affected by the edit of the season. Not that the edit was heavily favourable or unfair to certain people, or moments more than other seasons. Yes, there were some people who got little screen time and that affected how much other people connected with them. Like I said, it's no different to other seasons. We know what Drag Race producers and editors are like and how they show things, and that season wasn't different with that. What it was different with this season was obviously that they filmed each episode to be the usual hour-long episodes as the past season has, so they would film a lot more stuff and, you know, elongate challenges and runways and lip syncs and all that, because they know we were filming for 1 hour, obviously. And then MTV last minute decide for it to be only 40 minutes. And Drag Race episodes used to be 40 minutes long. I think it wasn't until season 10 when all of them used to be an hour long. For some reason, some episodes in season 8 and season 9 were either an hour long or 40 minutes long. It really depends. But now we're back to usual 40-minute episodes. And it would be completely fine if they knew they were doing that and filming for 40-minute episodes, because that's why it worked back in the day, because they knew they were filming 40-minute episodes. But when you're filming for 1 hour episodes and have a lot more content and context that needs to be added, and then you're told to edit down last minute to 40-minute episodes, it's much harder to have a cohesive episode and to have everything you filmed to be in there without looking as choppy as hell, and to also let the audience engage. And whilst the editors did the best they could do, and I'm sure it was a stressful as hell environment to get all done, I really felt the difference with how short it was, and it did hinder the season for me. It felt so much shorter as there wasn't much like time in the workroom and like time seeing the girls work on stuff and do stuff. They were cutting runways and judges' critiques, and you could just feel how fast the segments were. I just definitely didn't get to connect with the season and the queens that much, and it especially didn't help when the premiere was spread across 2 episodes, which were both an hour long and received so well, with people saying it was their favourite premiere format. So it took me quite a while to get into the season with that hindrance. And I know for some people that they didn't mind it or preferred it, which I'm great for them. I'm glad people can still enjoy it that much. For me, it made it hard to enjoy the season a lot when halfway through the episode it was already over. However, this season just clicked with me with the bubbly comedy stand-up episode, as it was a mix of great mini challenges with the little ball thing, a great challenge as well, the comedy stand-up thing, a great runway with the ripper to shreds, and of course that lip sync. And oh yeah, the fact that it was the first episode in a while, which was 1 hour again, definitely helped. I know the whole episode length sounds like a minuscule issue on paper, and it was to some, but for me the length of each episode affects whether I'll be engaged with the episode or not. The storylines this season were also interesting, as there weren't many season-long ones, but a lot of mini ones across a couple of episodes. I think one that I thought would be much bigger, that was cut off quite quickly, was this social media versus non-social media queens. It was social media queens like Sugar and Spice, and Amethyst and Poppy and Lux to a certain extent, talking about how a lot of non-social media queens, or queens who've been out there longer because they're much older and had that experience, feeling kind of like put down by them just because they're social media queens. That's the only way they can really start up, because obviously in America you have to be 21 to drink and get into clubs. So for a lot of queens, the only way they can start out is on social media. But they've also got the argument of being like, but also you're not having the full drag experience, which is performing in clubs and entertaining people in real life, which is also a good point. I think both sides weigh up well, and as I'm not a drag queen, I feel like I don't have a complete say on it, but I really wish that kind of storyline was brought up a lot more throughout the season, as it'd be interesting to see with the queens getting to know each other on both sides more, how it changed their perspective. But it was definitely a good conversation start anyway. I think another main one was also the Sugar and Spice and how they do being twins and new to the drag scene, and also being TikTok famous and having a massive following before Drag Race, and seeing them in a scenario where other queens wouldn't get them or see them as fake is instantly great TV and a great part of the competition. And the twins in the premiere gave us the most, and they were great. It was also obvious that at one point the twins would lip sync against each other, whether it was completely fair or production snuck their hands into it. What was surprising is how early on it happened, only being 4 episodes in on Snatch Game. It was deserved, as both of them bombed Snatch Game real bad. Luckily both were in that kind of like so bad it's funny kind of camp, and then Spice sent Sugar home in quite a camp bad lip sync, and that was it. I think producers were hoping that whichever twin stayed, they would have had like a euphoric moment and slayed the rest of the competition. To be honest, at some point before the season aired, Spice was rumoured to be in top 4 with 4 wins, which, It was an interesting time. It would definitely be interesting if it actually happened this season. But alas, Spice was eliminated a couple episodes later, being safe or low with no wins. But the twins were an iconic part of the season, and I think most people learned to love them in the end. And Mistress and Malaysia co-parenting them is the best. However, the most fun part of the season was the drama. Mistress Isabel Brooks was the drama of the season, and she kept it entertaining from start to finish. Her being catty and shady but also playful to the other queens is such a refreshing energy, but also what part of drag is. Her rival with Malaysia was fun, as it was crossed between their friendship and shady behaviour. Obviously the whole Metalgate thing was actual drama between them, but it also gave me one of my favourite lines of the season.
Well, you have a blessed night. As will I.
But they just gave this energy Drag Race needed. What was even better was with Mistress, Lucy, with Lux as well. I love all of them, and seeing the little catty arguments and rivalry were just so much fun and kept me watching each week. It also gave me one of my favourite moments of the season.
I mean, I think I executed what they asked me to do.
Are you gonna attack?
I repeat this action daily and I love it so much. Lux and Lucy's little rivalry thing was a funny part, as you could feel the competition getting to them, which is understandable at that point, but it's just also just so fun to watch. Especially when they had the argument thing at the start of an episode about Lucy not having a baby bump foot Beyonce look and Lux saying, but you need it, and it was just this kind of really funny thing at the table, only for them to be paired for the comedy challenge later on. But then they use their rivalry and little catty remarks to help them with their comedy challenge, which is why they won. And it just kind of shows at the end of the day they get each other, but they will apply the best of the competition. They're not trying to get to each other like that. Another one of my favourite moments of the season is during the Who Should Go Home Tonight and Why, and Lux going down the line complimenting everyone but Lucy. It was cinema, and we need more of those moments. Same with Lucy's exit in the workroom. It's rare seeing queens being fully pissed off that they were eliminated, or at least them speaking about it, and Lucy went full throttle saying how other queens should have been in bottom and not her, and she's just amazing TV. Lucy was great. So yeah, that is just the energy and drama the season needed, and all those queens did such a fun job with that. I also labelled this season the season of second place, and I think it's because of the overarching feeling of the Sasha Colby meet and greet, and the fact that the queens love to argue who was second place out of the top two high spots. A lot of the time when this happens, Sasha was also the queen who won that week, so it's always funny to see the queens fighting for who was second place to Sasha Colby that week, like it was the most important place and not first place. And this culminated into the final. No one really argued about Sasha winning, but overall everyone was arguing about which queen should have been second overall. I remember when finale ended filming, like a couple of weeks before it was supposed to be aired, and we found out that Sasha and Anetra were top two, and everyone was talking about, oh, who should actually be top two and who was better, but no one was questioning that Sasha was top two because people just knew Sasha was winning, rightfully so. It all kind of suggests that this was Sasha's season to lose. If she didn't prove herself to be the legend that she was built up to be, she wasn't going to win, but if she did, she had a very good chance of winning. You know, she proved throughout the season that she was deserving of it, and you know, the obvious thing is that she did have the best track record and the most wins. You know, in a competition format, that's the best thing you can have. I still think all the finalists had a chance of winning, and all of them would have been great winners. I think this is one of the strongest groups of finalists we've ever got. But again, it was Sasha's game to win, and second place was everyone else's game to win. And that's why season 15 feels like a season of the second place. I think the storylines in the final ended fairly well. Whilst there was no finalist with an overarching storyline that was clear, like getting over their fears or stopping their self-doubt or finally getting the win they deserve, or the underdog storyline, all of the finalists were deserving, and I think the finale was one of the best we've ever had. The performances in the final were all great, and you can tell these queens got on another level. Sasha and Lux had my personal favourite performances, but I also understand the final two in the end. But of course, to no surprise, Sasha Colby won, and she thoroughly deserved it, as she proves why she's a legend as well as a trailblazer for drag. Like I said, this season did feel like a return to form for Drag Race, and it felt refreshing in that aspect. You know, we had no overarching twist, as I said, and no non-eliminations each episode. Whilst there was one double Shantae being Anetra and Mistress in the final, so it'd be a top four. Whilst the length and editing of some of the episodes hindered some of the enjoyment, as well as some production decisions and the lack of some innovative challenge ideas, the rest of the season 15 outshines that to create such an enjoyable incredible season. The more time goes by, the more enjoyment I have with the season, and I think it's already a classic. And most importantly, it's so important to have a show like this when drag queens and queer and trans people all around the world are under threat. So please support these queens and your local queens as well. Please support the queer people around you, whether you're part of the community or an ally. It's so important to uplift and listen to people and be supportive right now. I hope you've had a great Pride Month, but Pride never stops either. It's a protest and will always be here existing and fighting. Congratulations to Sasha Colby for winning, to Anetra, Lux and Mistress for being amazing runner-up, and to all the queens on the season for making it so entertaining. And maybe soon you'll know where it stands with the rest of the Drag Race seasons.